What are some signs that you are being manipulated? Everything is always your fault. When you catch them in a lie and you know they've lied, but they still don't admit they've lied. I wouldn't have had to do that if you weren't so. Something that makes you the bad guy here. Manipulators often induce uncomfortable, negative feelings such as fear, guilt, or shame to get you to do what they want. Pay attention to the feelings you get around other people. If you really loved me, you would do, insert thing here. Usually you don't really realize it. When other people start telling you there's a problem, that's when you finally realize. That's what it took for me. When you look back later, you can finally see what everyone else saw. You are being forced to make decisions that you are uncomfortable with. You feel like someone is always pushing you to make rushed decisions. You never get the last word. Someone behaving differently in public versus in private. Someone behaving differently in public versus in private. I think this one is too vague. It's fine if your partner isn't super into PDA but then is more physically affectionate in private. I'd say the problem would be if their public reputation would be hurt if people knew how they act in private. A big red flag is that you feel utterly miserable after spending time with them. A much bigger red flag is that you desperately want to spend time with them again. Toxic relationships are fiercely addictive, more than any substance I have ever tried. If a person makes you absolutely miserable, and you feel like you can't live without them, you're in serious trouble. Only some very good friends, and if possible a therapist, can get you out of that. They use the threat of leaving a relationship to get their way. This one hurts the most. You lied to me about something important and now I want to talk about it. I deserve an explanation. Apology. Fine, I'm always in trouble anyway, guess I'll just pack my crap and leave. Over and over and over. 1. The feeling of walking on eggshells. 2. The sick feeling in your stomach when you think they're mad at you about something. 3. You no longer have friends. 4. You have issues with family. 5. Nothing about your life is of your choosing. 6. You filter everything you say to avoid fights. 7. Suppressing your opinions. 8. Feeling like you're living someone else's life. 9. Constantly complimenting the person. 10. Constantly reassuring the person. 11. Always putting their feelings before yours. I could keep going but I'm sure you get the picture. You're questioning yourself. The term gaslighting is often used to identify manipulation that gets people to question themselves, their reality, memory or thoughts. A manipulative person might twist what you say and make it about them, hijack the conversation or make you feel like you've done something wrong when you're not quite sure you have. This is such an important one to recognize. Examples are telling you that you said something that you didn't or telling you remembered something wrong. I'll probably get downvoted for this, but if someone is truly good at manipulation, there aren't signs. You don't notice. You only realize you were being manipulated in retrospect. If they do something that hurt you and you end up apologizing instead, or if you tell a person that you're uncomfortable with, say, certain types of jokes, but they keep telling you that you're just too sensitive. Basically, if they make you feel bad for their actions. My ex. If I ever was upset, rather than comforting me, she'd get double upset until I had no choice but to comfort her. Never felt really cared for. For me, it was being accused of being overly sensitive. Turns out it's completely reasonable to be offended by offensive things. I'm all too familiar with this. After a few months I was very upset about something at the time and he said I had kept from him that I was depressed and sensitive. After this, crying was seen as a weakness and I was made to feel like I was bringing him down or overreacting. He would walk out and roll his eyes. A month after losing my dad I crashed and he treated it like I was a nuisance. Aggressiveness, anger, conversation steering at the very beginning of a discussion that they don't want to have. The conversation will never occur. There is always something that stops or diverts it, endlessly. When you call them out for doing something hurtful and they say, yeah, I'm a piece of crap then, or if you want to believe I did that, then I can't stop you. Or I'm sorry what I did hurt you, but I don't regret it. The silent treatment. You constant being given the feeling you are doing something wrong. Behavior towards others painfully different than behavior towards you. Keeping you from family and friends. calling you wherever you are for control, change treatment of you without giving reason. Being accused of behavior that was originally exhibited by the accusing party. Simple version is, say a friend of yours is being extremely hostile, you respond in a frustrated manner wherein out of context you wouldn't be viewed in a good light. They then go about telling mutual acquaintances that you are hostile. Every time you say something, they make you feel like it's your fault or like you're the villain, making you question your judgment and own memories. Manipulators are extremely jealous and needy, usually narcissist type. They will start small by getting you to do little favors for them, then they get angry if you don't do everything they ask. And a lot of manipulative PPL will start fights and argue for no reason. Just endless fights about who is right. When you feel like you're crazy and feel guilty for doing things that aren't bad, don't harm anyone but pee off the person gaslighting you. Red flag 1. Important information is missing or needs drug out into the light, kicking and screaming. There is a reason they don't want you to have it. And if you find out one thing they didn't want you to know, it's safe to assume there is more. It's very unlikely that you happen to find out the only bad thing they've hidden when they're a list and manipulator. There is nearly always more. When you share your feelings with someone and they turn it into something about them, to make you feel guilty about sharing in the first place. So many people have it worse than you need to be grateful. I mean that as in, what someone who is trying to manipulate you would say, not to the person who posted the main comment. When your behavior around that person is entirely narrowed down to things that won't upset that person, because they have trained you with the constant threat of their bad emotions. Leaving every interaction feeling like you compromised, you were made to feel at fault. Like you need to make something up to the other person even if it was a blatant issue with them. I got upset at my ex for staying up late and getting absolutely blasted drunk with my friend, who was an alcoholic, and I felt very insecure about if they liked each other because it was such a weird dynamic for them to do this behind my back. I brought up that I felt disrespected because I was woken up at 3 AM on a work night by the two of them laughing and then her throwing up in my living room. I knew she had a problem, but when I brought it up with him, he packed up all his stuff, told me I was awful, and made me apologize and beg for forgiveness. Yeah, frick that. When you have to keep assuring someone that you are not manipulating them, manipulators always accuse others of being manipulative. It's a tricky dong situation. I was deeply depressed for like 5 years after a death in family and got really angry at a couple friends for just being crappy friends. Started questioning whether I was a huge narcissist. I think we all can have narcissist tendencies, but yeah, sometimes you just have crappy friends that aren't there for you. Trust your instincts. Knowing what was said or done, especially if it was hurtful or negative towards you, but constantly being told that's not what happened and you're crazy, then they tell you what happened. Gaslighting over time really does make you feel crazy. Once you're away from that person and cut them off and the fog lifts, it's a beautiful life. Constantly justifying bad behavior for them in your mind, them making you feel bad, then don't acknowledge it and act like it's no big deal, provide no assurance, always wondering if you're the problem even when you know the other person is wrong. You always come last. You begin to question yourself where you wouldn't have previously. You feel like you're always doing something wrong, always having to watch your words, walking on eggshells with that person. You start feeling like you're losing your mind. They tell you or ask you something extremely personal early on in the relationship that crosses a major boundary. This is to test your openness and willingness to do things. You feel uncomfortable, but can't pinpoint why exactly. Alternatively, you can figure out the problem, but talking about it with the manipulator doesn't resolve anything. When the person in question has an answer for everything. When you're always the one to save the day, but no one saves your day. When you are suspicious or feel like you must walk on eggshells. When you're afraid to ask questions. When you feel like asserting yourself isn't worth the fight. When on the surface you think something is good for you, but inside you're having lots of turmoil about things. When confrontations always return to the same subject. When the other party never wants to be in a position to answer questions. When the answer that should be there isn't there. When nothing's ever clear. When things don't add up, time after time. When you've had enough, but the other person makes you feel obligated. When the other person always finds a use for you and butters you up. When you've saved the butt of others one too many times and you're underappreciated for it. When the past repeats itself. When you're afraid to say no. When you're always told no. I could go on forever with these. I've been manipulated a lot in my past and have finally learned from it. When someone weaponizes their insecurity, whether it's honest or not, it can be manipulation. For example, if you try to talk someone about wanting any kind of change, no matter how minor, and they start the "I'm the worst person in the world, I should just go die in a hole, you'll be better off without me," and you end up having to comfort them, and somehow your own needs never get addressed. When you start apologizing for existing. Sorry I talk so much, sorry I'm annoying, sorry if I'm bothering you. Not so much gaslight why all the time, but manipulated to devalue yourself. The world's harsh enough. Don't add yourself to the list of your critics. If you start questioning your own feelings, you are being manipulated. Never let anyone make your feelings feel invalid. You clearly remember, and may even have written proof that something was said, or a rule that specified one thing in particular, but are being told that it was never that, and they are being either very aggressive about it, or flippant and nonchalant. They do something bad and apologize, but then end up doing the bad thing again. They won't let you hang out with your friends or relatives, but you have to be with them when they hang out with theirs. They make everything you do or say sound really small or petty, or not a big deal. Everyone's priorities are evident in their actions. Full stop. When their words do not match their actions, it's clear you're being manipulated. 1. If they love bomb you, they want too much too soon, are overly eager to commit very early on, say and do all the right things, but lack consistency. They may keep it up for a month or two, long enough for you to be hooked. Then they start treating you poorly. 2. Gaslighting. If they make you feel crazy or too sensitive, or they say mean-spirited things and then say it's a joke. 3. If they always play the victim no matter what the situation. 4. If they say things like, "Oh you're right, I'm just the worst human being on the planet," or similar things, when you try to call them out for unpleasant behavior. 5. When they guilt trip you by saying things like, "After all I've done for you." 6. When they open up to you about their trauma or problems way too fast, or when they use their trauma as an excuse of why they treat you poorly. 7. When they act really close to you or lovey-dovey, but then get cold or distant, leaving you confused. 8. When they always need favors, but don't seem to reciprocate. 9. When they become overly dependent or controlling, but make it seem like it's just because they love you or are looking out for you. 10. When a person you don't know that well smack talks other people or tries to sully their image before you've had a chance to get to know the person they are speaking about. 11. Invalidating your feelings or successes. 12. Repeatedly crossing your boundaries. If you find yourself sharing identical opinions with poorly educated, unqualified nut jobs who ignore global highly educated experts and a myriad of provable facts in lieu of YouTube videos, opinions and niche websites, then I'm afraid you've just been manipulated to the max, my gullible friend. In your disagreements with someone, they always approach the discussion with the mindset that they're right and you are wrong. They seem unwilling to even entertain the notion that they might be the one who is mistaken. If you're the only one who ever seems to engage in any kind of introspection, and you're consistently the only person between the two of you who ever acknowledges doing something wrong or apologizes, odds are very good that you're dealing with a manipulator. If they spend a long time wheedling you and convincing you they need X and you give in, and then suddenly they need Y as well. I had friends who would do this with money. They'd tearfully explain how they just needed $50 to get to the end of the month. And I'd agree, and then the follow-up message would be, "Actually we need $100 instead, bring it by before 7. It's boundary testing, seeing what they can get away with, while also pouncing on the fact that you've relented. You said they could stay on your couch a week? Actually it's 2 weeks and they need your bed now. You said they could borrow your car? Cool. Also they need money for gas. You offered a ride to the airport? Awesome. They need you to pick up a few things on the way and carry their bags." If they try to guilt trip you into not being upset with them, if you disrespect someone, You must face the consequences of your own actions and try to make it up to them. A good person will never try to make your feelings seem less valid or try to make the situation your fault. Also, manipulative people tend to remind you often about what a good person they are. A real good person will not need to remind you of that. When it comes to salesmen, I feel like an instant red flag is if they insist that you close the deal that day. It's like they don't want to give you time to think about it and research it. Perfect example, timeshares. There's an excellent book called 30 Covert Emotional Manipulation Tactics: How Manipulators Take Control in Personal Relationships by Adeline Birch. I think it's one of those books everyone should read, even if you don't think you are being manipulated. When you are being manipulated, you really may never even notice. Here are the covert manipulation tactics covered in the book. 1. Intermittent reinforcement. 2. Negative reinforcement. 3. Backing into an emotional corner. 4. Shifting the focus. 5. Premature disclosure. 6. Triangulation. 7. Blaming the victim. 8. Indirect insults and abuse. 9. Insinuating comments or compliments. 10. Guilt. 11. Shame. 12. Empty words. 13. Crazy making. 14. Gaslighting. 15. Minimizing. 16. The silent treatment. 17. Lying. 18. Invalidation. 19. Charm. 20. Intentional forgetting. 21. Brandishing anger or traumatic one-trial learning. 22. Scapegoating. 23. Belittling. 24. Putting you on the defensive. 25. Creating fear. 26. The pity play. 27. Rationalization. 28. Flattery. 29. Love bombing. 30. Trance and hypnosis. All of these tactics come with an explanation and examples in the book, and it's just 95 pages long. Read it. While talking to you, either giving you information or asking you something, they will probably touch your arm or lean in closer. Establishing physical contact. Eye contact increases the chances of the person accepting the information. Body language is something we all react to without knowing it. A person in an office chair will have more power than someone in a stationary chair because they can more easily change how they are sitting. Also, asking 2 questions, one after the other, you're most likely to answer only one of the questions, so the person will be able to keep directing the conversation based on your answer. I've been watching tons of police interrogation videos lately, so I could go on. Double standards. A usually less harmful one, but still annoyed me when people did it, is when you refuse to do something for them, do it their way, and when the argument escalates they go, don't make such a big deal out of it. Everything is somehow your fault. Even if you weren't there for it, you didn't do say it, you didn't even know about it, you eventually believe that whatever happened was because you did something wrong. From work. And this doesn't directly apply to me anymore. We'll be looking at getting you a raise soon. Soon equals ambiguous term used by management to avoid an outright lie, while simultaneously not planning to do what they said. There are different ways of manipulation. In my own experiences, making yourself being guilty for actions that are not yours, always putting you in a victimizer position. When you are asked a question by someone else and they respond for you and you think of it as normal, only time this should be normal is parents with small children, or if you are unable to answer on your own, like being unable to speak, and they are answering on your behalf. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.